special guest, um, our dear friend Tricia Broderick. Uh, Anjali, do you want to share with everyone what we're talking about today?
Yeah. Well, welcome, Tricia. We're so glad that you're here. April reached out to me earlier today and said, "Hey, we have a guest today, Tricia Broderick." And I'm like, "Yes." And she told me the topic for today is going to be about living with trauma. We just select topics that emerge. And that was a topic that she brought up in terms of us wanting to have a conversation with you about. And I became really curious. So I know that it just feels a little bit nervous for me to even approach this topic. So tell me, Trisha, tell me a little bit about why is this topic important to you, and tell
Well, I
us a little
think,
bit about living with trauma.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it is the nerves that you're actually even experiencing right there. I think we, in this society, we make traumas taboo to talk about. We make it in a lot of ways more traumatic because we can't talk. And not just as the person experiencing and living with the trauma, but others to engage in the trauma. I don't want to cause more pain. I don't know where to step, where not to step. And I got exposed a long time ago in terms of how really naive we are in terms of understanding how to deal with really, really difficult situations, really traumatic situations, both as the person experiencing it as well as the friend or the family member or the support system. And so for me, I won't say it started, it became a very important thing to not make it taboo, to be willing to be open and vulnerable and to share.
And what did you do to help make that journey from being taboo to openness about it?
Yeah. So for context for people, my first son was stillborn, and that was over 16 years ago. And so in some ways, different traumas cause different paths for everybody. And there is no right or wrong way. For me, it became the more that I tried to let it be taboo, the more that I tried to let it not be spoken about, the less I felt like I was a mother to my son, the less it felt like I was honoring my family. And so it was a lot of trial and error with me and with my husband, with my friends of what did I want acknowledged? What didn't I want acknowledged? What did I want to share and not share? And it became a way that it just made it normal. This was my reality. This was our family. I will forever be a mother to one of my children that's not with me. And how do I make that normal? And not easy, some days I can say that and not cry. Some days I say that and I cry. But how do I make it just not something I hesitate to say and to acknowledge? And so for me with it, it was the driver behind a little bit of it was me mothering my child and being a way to honor him. But depending on which traumas, which things, it turned later into a way to fulfill a purpose and helping other women that may experience the same traumas or similar traumas that I live with every day.
Yeah.
Amazing that you're bringing up this topic, Trisha, because one of my really close friends just 2 weeks ago had a stillborn baby,
Oh,
and as you're saying this, I feel it's funny because I don't know. I want to respect. She asked for us to just hold our thoughts and our sympathies, and I don't know how to approach. I want to hold her. I want to hug her. I want to be there for her. Um, So thank you for sharing your story, because I think I'm going to reach out to you after this to to ask you a little bit about how I might be able to be there for her. But how are people there for you through through that experience that you had?
A wide spectrum, in all honesty. And I think that's why it became a little bit of my version. Like I'm immediately with your friend right now. Like I'm immediately going, oh, did she have a girl or boy? What was the name? Right. Like I'm immediately like in that space. And I think that's part of living with trauma, right? Like is finding the breath, but also just having this dynamic of it's just part of my world, right? Like in some ways, the more you share about your traumas, the more others feel comfortable to connect with those and to share their similar experiences with it. So it tends to find you a little more too. I had a wide spectrum, in all honesty. Loss, marriage, marriage survival rates from infertility or loss or neonatal loss is, high, like 70+%. I think at the last time I saw the stat, my husband was amazing. Like I didn't appreciate it all fully at the time. And if you ask him right now, I won't fully acknowledge, right? Like, but he truly was doing things I didn't even know he was doing. Like, for example, of, Babies R Us sends you your child is now 1 based on your due date from when you registered. And so he would hide those, he would get rid of those things so I wouldn't see them, right? So I had a lot of people that did a lot of things for me that I didn't even know. Like I still don't know who brought my car home, right? Like, and all these like weird things, right? But I also had a lot of additional loss. I had friends that I thought were friends, right? That disappeared. They didn't know what to do or what to say, and it was easier to just avoid me. I had friends that projected a lot onto me of whether or not I should be less angry or more angry, and then followed up with, I can't imagine what you're going through. I'm like, then you don't get to tell somebody who's going through trauma how to respond. In a lot of ways, when you're in, especially in those deep throes, in those moments, it's about survival. Sometimes it's 1 minute at a time. It's just trying to put a foot in front of another. And so I had a lot of judgments, sometimes with really good intent and sometimes not, honestly. That was really hard. I think it added to the trauma in different ways. I think about other traumas that people have shared with me. And I think about how people, like there's a common phrase that says you're re-victimized all over again. Either because people deny it, dismiss it, don't believe, or like blame you, all of these things. Yeah. And I don't think people fully understand that when you're in that place, how easy it is that you want to blame yourself, how easy it is that you want that.
You're so right. I think about, I know my first child, my husband, our first child didn't come for tuition, when you miscarry early on. And I think about the grief that I experienced there and how hard it was. It was as if like I knew them my entire life and like going through that process. And some people can't understand that. But I think about what was anchoring for me and what gave me breath and how I was able to put myself together just to be present in life, to move forward. What gave you that breath? What anchored you? What anchors you? Yeah.
I don't think it happened right away. And the easy answer would actually be, well, I had other children and then they had a sense of it really wasn't that. I mean, I do love all my children. That sounded kind of bad, but like, for me, what gave me, what eventually gave me that place was having a bigger purpose. The fact that I am outspoken, the fact that I am willing to be vulnerable meant I could help be more comfortable in death when others couldn't be.
Mm.
And at times I have conversations with others that people are like, you said what? Because it doesn't scare me. It doesn't make me run away. And as a result of that, kind of to Anjali's question of, I hope I'm providing better support than I fully got. Like, I got amazing support. I don't want to downplay, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't get that from everybody. And so there's a part of me that hopes that I'm giving that better support for people as they face these horrific situations that they have to learn to live with and find a new identity. And so for me, my breath, my purpose, has still stayed helping others, but setting an example that it doesn't have to be taboo.
Yeah.
It is so like refreshing when I talk about it, when I go back, all those years myself to think about it. I didn't really come up out of it until I had an opportunity to talk about it, where people actually just listened. Then all of a sudden, I was able to function in the world again. Like that, how like deep listening, real listening, and creating space for that, how healing that can be.
Mm.
And part of it is it's your whole self.
Yeah.
Right? That's a huge part of you. And people really downplay miscarriage. And it pisses me off because there's a dynamic, there's a loss. And in a lot of ways, it's losses in different ways than I experience and in different dynamics. But part of that is you get to be your whole self. And then you get seen as your whole self, which is what helps with some of the healing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you both for sharing. I think such a raw and deep experience that you both had, and for the strength and courage that you bring in not only talking about it, but both of you. I've witnessed April lots of lots of times with April and Tricia. When your openness to sharing what you just shared with us, I think is incredibly healing for a lot of people out there, whether it's a trauma through miscarriage or other crazy things that people have to go through in their lives. It is stunning how we actually make it through all of that.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And I think I've heard over and over again that people who experience this incredible trauma come out with time stronger, and with a sense of purpose that is deep and meaningful.
It gives you oh, I'm sorry.
No, please go
It
ahead.
gives you a perspective, right? Of different things. And we both have experience in loss trauma, but whether it's sexual assault, there's so many traumas out there that are like, because we've made it this taboo topic, we've downplayed the impact that it has and that it does. And that's why I actually call it living with trauma, because there isn't ever a like, okay, that's gone. Like I even hearing your friend and just saying that, like, I can feel what your friend is feeling. Like I can still go back there. Now the trick for me is learning techniques of not getting in that place and then being, in a bed for 2 weeks and highly depressed. But sometimes there are moments that I break still, right? Like in different triggers that can still occur. And they hit you almost even harder after a certain period of time. But on the same note, it is finding this new identity because it is a part of you still identity. And that's why having that different perspective and why diversity is beautiful, but trauma also builds who you are. Like I am not the same person I was before Connor passed away. And I'm not glad that Connor passed away, but I'm glad of who I am today because of Connor's influence.
So that gets us to like one other thing. When you have trauma, especially like with loss, right? Loss of someone that you love, like Connor. for others that there's things that remind you, there's those anniversaries, right?
Oh yeah.
Like we've been like you shared, like what do you do to not to be able to allow that to be, again, you say, like, it's like living with it. What do you do when it comes to those times, those triggering memories or anniversaries? Could you share a little bit of that?
Sure. I was encouraged, and I was never really one big on traditions and like doing the same thing, and yet I was encouraged to kind of do that by a number of people, and there are things that I do for certain times, for certain years. I also give myself a lot of grace. If I'm not feeling like being in the holiday spirit, I don't have to be in the holiday spirit. If people expect a Christmas card with my family picture on it, I don't have to do it if it's upsetting me because I feel like one child's missing, right? So I give myself a lot of grace in terms of I can have a plan. And as I'm finding how I'm reacting, and if I need to change that plan, then we do. And we adjust based on that. I do take off certain anniversaries from work. I've learned that I cannot just power through it. There are some that, like, I will just be like, "Oh, what did you say to me?" and I'm gone, right?
Yeah.
And I try and make some exceptions, but I do find that I am not as skilled around his anniversary. A lot of dramas or conflicts that I've had tend to be around March because I'm just not as skilled. And I also have a expectation of others, right or wrong, to help me during that time. And so I have considered just wiping March off my calendar at times. But I do give myself space. I take time off. I have little traditions where we, take things to the hospital and donate and whatnot for different holidays, different anniversaries. But mostly I give myself grace, even after 16 years of, there is no one right way to live with trauma. And the goal is to be someone that my son would be proud of, to be someone that I cannot feel shame, right? And to look in that mirror and to own me, and to be okay if there are days that I need to break a little, to be okay on the days that I can't support somebody else because I'm in a bad place, or in the days that it's okay if I laugh and it doesn't mean that I'm a bad mom. Right. And because I think that's the other angle that really comes, is like we tend to focus a lot on the living with trauma and the bad parts, but sometimes living with trauma, and when you feel really good and you forget for a brief moment, and then the guilt that sets in from that, or the, oh no, this bad thing's going to happen. You're almost waiting for the next shoe to drop kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with death of a close one, period, or some kind of event where it triggers that and you almost feel like you got blindsided by it, can have a different effect with that too. So I really try to lead with grace first in terms of what I need in that moment, what my family needs in that moment, what somebody else may need in that moment. Because there are all days we need to scream, days we need to cry, days we need to laugh, and all of that is normal and okay.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Tricia.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for reminding us that it's important to honor the loss and to take care of ourselves.
Because that's a great thing. Actually, you just said that with it and reminded me of, like, any trauma is a loss. It's not just a loss. Like, I had a loss of a child. April had a loss of a child. Like, there are traumas that are just, they're losses. They're losses of innocence sometimes. They're losses of dreams, of hopes, of security, right? And it's all loss. And that deserves to be acknowledged.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing with us today. And there's another episode of Live with April and Anjali with a wonderful guest that we had a chance to speak with today, Tricia Broderick. So, Tricia, thank you.
Oh, thank
If
you.
you like what you hear on Live with April and Anjali, subscribe to our channel on YouTube and you'll get alerted when we go live. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we'll see you at the next Live with April and Anjali.
You guys, this is amazing.